The Young and the Restless Spoilers. In the stillness of the night, Sharon Newman sat in her dimly lit living room, the shadows playing tricks on her fragile mind. The room was silent, but her thoughts were anything but. Ever since her diagnosis, Sharon had struggled to keep the darker aspects of her psyche at bay. Voices in her head, the constant whispering of negative thoughts, and the overwhelming urge to exact vengeance on those she despised had become her constant companions. She knew she was sick, but that understanding did little to quell the storm brewing inside her. Cameron Kirsten, a figure from her dark past, had always been a source of torment for Sharon. Though he was long dead, his presence lingered in her mind like a persistent shadow. Recently, his voice had returned, more insistent and persuasive than ever. He whispered to her, feeding her anger and resentment, telling her that Lucy was the one who had harmed Faith. It was Lucy who deserved to be punished, Cameron insisted, and Sharon, in her vulnerable state, believed him. The idea of punishing Lucy for what had happened to Faith took root in her mind, growing stronger with each passing day. Lucy, in reality, had not suffered the grave injuries that Sharon imagined. She had recovered quickly, and in her moments of clarity, expressed deep remorse for her actions. She cried, acknowledging her mistakes, but her efforts to make amends seemed superficial, almost insincere. The consequences of her actions had left a lasting impact on Faith, something that Sharon could not forgive or forget. Sharon's desire for retribution grew, fueled by the belief that Lucy's regret was insufficient to right the wrongs she had caused. Driven by this overwhelming need for vengeance, Sharon began to formulate a plan. She knew that simply confronting Lucy would not satisfy the rage burning within her. She needed to make Lucy truly understand the pain she had caused, to make her suffer as Faith had. The idea of kidnapping Lucy began to take shape in Sharon's mind. A plan that would see her take Lucy to a remote location, perhaps a basement or a deserted warehouse, where she could inflict the punishment she believed Lucy deserved. The more Sharon thought about it, the more it made sense to her. Cameron's voice was there, encouraging her, telling her that this was the only way to achieve justice for Faith. Sharon knew she was on a dangerous path. She felt powerless to stop herself. The need for revenge had consumed her, and there was no turning back. On the night she decided to execute her plan, Sharon wrote a note, leaving it in a place where it would be easily found. The note read, "I am Cameron. I have taken Lucy to punish her." The message was simple but effective. Sharon knew it would instill fear in those who read it, making them believe that Cameron had somehow returned from the dead to exact his own form of justice. The note served a dual purpose. It would divert suspicion away from Sharon and add an element of terror to the situation. As expected, the note caused panic among those who found it. The thought of Cameron being alive and taking Lucy sent shockwaves through the community. Cameron had been a notorious figure, and the idea that he might still be out there seeking revenge was terrifying. But there was one person who was not fooled by the note: Mariah. Mariah had always been close to Sharon, understanding her in ways that others could not. When she saw the note, Mariah's instincts told her that something was not right. The handwriting, the phrasing, the very nature of the message, it all pointed to one person: Sharon. Mariah knew her mother too well, and she realized with a sinking heart Sharon was the one behind Lucy's disappearance. Driven by a mix of fear and determination, Mariah set out to find Sharon before it was too late. She knew that if Sharon went through with her plan, there would be no turning back. Consequences would be devastating, not just for Lucy, but for Sharon as well. Mariah had to act quickly, but she also knew that she needed to approach the situation with care. Sharon was in a fragile state, and any wrong move could push her over the edge. As Mariah searched for clues to Sharon's whereabouts, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sorrow. Sharon had always been strong, a pillar of support for those around her, but the illness had taken its toll, warping her mind and turning her into someone Mariah barely recognized. The mother she loved was still there, buried beneath the layers of anger and pain, and Mariah was determined to bring her back. The search led Mariah to an old, abandoned house on the outskirts of town. It was a place Sharon had mentioned in passing years ago, a place that held dark memories for her. Mariah's heart raced as she approached the house, fear and hope battling for dominance within her. She had no idea what she would find inside, but she knew she had to be prepared for anything. Pushing open the creaky door, Mariah stepped into the darkness, her senses on high alert. She called out for her mother, her voice echoing through the empty rooms. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, and then she heard it. A faint sound coming from below. Following the noise, Mariah made her way to the basement door, hand trembling as she reached for the handle. As she descended the stairs, the air grew colder, and the faint sound became clearer. It was the sound of someone crying. Mariah's heart clenched as she reached the bottom of the stairs and saw them. Sharon, standing over a bound and gagged Lucy, her face a mask of conflicted emotions. "Mom," Mariah whispered, her voice trembling. "Please stop this." Sharon looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger, confusion, and pain. For a moment, it seemed as though she didn't recognize her own daughter. But then, something in Mariah's voice seemed to reach her, and Sharon's expression softened. "Mariah?" Sharon's voice was barely audible, as if she were waking from a nightmare. What am I doing?" Mariah took a cautious step forward, her eyes never leaving Sharon's. "You're sick, Mom. This isn't you. You don't want to hurt anyone. We can still fix this, but you have to let Lucy go." Sharon looked down at Lucy, who was trembling with fear, tears streaming down her face. For a long moment, there was only silence as Sharon struggled with her emotions. The voice of Cameron was still there, urging her to finish what she had started. It was growing weaker, drowned out by the sound of her daughter's pleas. Finally, with a trembling hand, Sharon reached down and untied Lucy, her movements slow and hesitant. As the ropes fell away, Lucy collapsed to the floor, her sobs growing louder. Sharon stepped back, her eyes wide with shock, as if she were seeing the scene for the first time. Mariah quickly moved to Lucy's side, helping her to her feet. She looked at her mother, a mixture of relief and sorrow in her eyes. "It's going to be okay, Mom," she said softly, "but we need to get you help." Sharon nodded slowly, her strength seeming to drain away as the reality of what she had done set in. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry." As Mariah led Sharon out of the basement and into the light, she knew that the road ahead would be difficult. Sharon would need treatment, support, and understanding to overcome the demons that had taken hold of her. But Mariah was determined to stand by her mother, no matter how long it took. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, and maybe, just maybe, Sharon could find her way back to the person she once was.